Oh, didn't see you there. My name is Josh Page, and this is my ISM data analysis project. As you can see here from the data, it's split into several categories. All the data, the country isn't important because all the data comes from the United States. Each data point is divided into regions, being either central, east, south, or west, and states, any of the 50 states. Then it's divided into zip codes, city, the date of the sale, whether it's 2018 or 2017, a department, which can be personal, grocery, or paper, and then the item name. So what the item was based off which department it was in, and then a sale amount and a profit amount as well. So moving on to the first data point. So here I have my first data point. For this worksheet, I wanted to show a broad scope of what regions sell the most of what product. So right here pointing out at us, we can see that in the West Coast, the Nexium conditioner is the most sold with 99 million in sales. So from this slide, we can also see that under our southern region, we have, generally speaking, between the personal and the grocery, it's a pretty even distribution. For all the other ones, you can see different color changes here. Central, kind of an outlier there, in the west as well. Some central outliers here with some lower numbers here. But the south, generally even. So that's going to lead us into the next one on why I chose the south in specific. That was messed up. Had something clicked there. So looking at our next page. So here we have personal sales in the South by state and item. So these are all states within the southern region. So from Alabama to Virginia, we have these. So within each state, we have it broken up into the 4 different product categories. So here we can see Florida. Again, this same one, the Nexus conditioner, again with the highest sale with 12 million. Then we have another outlier here in Georgia with the Kirkland brand there. And then if you look over, other than Florida and Georgia, maybe a little bit here in North Carolina, again with that Nexus conditioner, we have another big data point. So essentially what I wanted to show here was just kind of continuing to narrow down the search. So now I took from that larger region showing the entire United States to just the southern region of the U.S., showing Florida, Georgia, other states like that. Here on this slide, I have a map which shows each of the different states in the southern region, and each number under that, you can see a number which is under every state. I put a label. That is the number of records that are found within the Excel sheet in that. Keeping in mind that these are only for the personal department. So in Louisiana, there are 19 personal department records and $3 million in sales. Then we look over here at Florida. Florida has 165 records. And corresponding to that, almost 30 million in sales. So we can see from this slide that there's a trend with the amount of sales and the amount of records, which they all follow this. So then North Carolina, 100. It has less than Florida, but more than a place like, say, South Carolina. And more than a place like Georgia with only 70, 18 million compared to 16.7 there. So moving on to the next slide. This was my interactive dashboard slide. So on here, I have the same map from the previous slide, but what you can do here is I've combined it with the previous slide where you can break down and get an exact breakdown of the personal sales for each state. So here, if I click on Florida, it's going to tell me, okay, 2.7 million for the Dove Advanced Moisture Conditioner, 3 million there, 7 million there, and then for this Nexus, we see it's 12.2 million, which is the greatest, and it shows it here on a bar graph. If I were to click off, it'll return to this original graph with all of them, and then I can do the same for a state like Mississippi, Georgia, anything, any of the states within the southern region I can look at and see exactly what the makeup is of the personal sales. Moving on to my last slide before the story slide. Here I have personal sales. Looks like I have a typo there. I'm going to need to fix that. Here I had personal sales within, marked here, as you can see on the filters, just personal, within the state of Florida. So these are all Florida cities. So you have from here, from Baton Beach all the way to Jacksonville, and then all the way down to Miami, and even our city, Tampa here. It has the breakdown of how much sales in total. So here you have it marked for the total sales of all products added together. And then you also have a breakdown where you can see exactly how much is being sold of each individual product. So here we can look at Jacksonville, a great example. Nexus with 1.3 million, 1.1 million there with the Kirkland Signature Moisture Shampoo, the Kirkland Signature 5% Foam for Men, 1.2 million, and then 387,000 for the Dove Moisture Conditioner. As you can see here, Jacksonville and Miami have the greatest amount of sales in the state. But an important thing to note that I'll touch on later in the presentation is Tampa having a lower total amount of sales than St. Petersburg, which it has a bigger population than, and a greater population than Tallahassee, that even has a smaller population than St. Petersburg, but the largest amount of sales from each of those three. So moving over to the story slide. So here I have my story slide. Let's move this camera over here. So here I have my story slide. This is just one of the story slides. Starting here from the first one with what I talked about earlier about the South having generally leveled distributions of the data. And then here on my second slide, so the Nexus conditioner again within the state of Florida. So if I went back to this slide, this dashboard slide, and clicked off that, and then clicked on Florida, and I come back here, so now it's showing me Florida on this slide. So with my comment here showing that again Florida with this Nexus conditioner being the most sold in the entire South, which I can show that by clicking off that, moving back over. So if I move that out of the way, I can scroll and I can see, if I look in the entire South, the tallest bar is here in the state of Florida. That's the comment I put there. Moving on to the next slide, with Florida having significantly more records than any other state with 165, and the second most being North Carolina with 100. you can see based off the number of sales that there's a correlation. So we have our red, which is the highest you can go on a scale, at almost 30 million. And then we also have our greatest number of records. And then we have our lowest, 3 million there. And 20 here. So this is a little bit off the trend, but here, but if you look at it and you were to map this out on a line graph, you'd see that there's an upward trend where they both trend in a positive direction as they increase. Again, back to this Nexus portion there, you can see when you click on Florida specifically, you can see that it's the greatest with 12.2 million in sales. And then coming to the final conclusion of this presentation, you can see here on this slide that, back to this here, this is our sales goal here. What you can see from this is that there's an untapped market, which in specific would be in the city of Tampa, an untapped market that there's low sales but a high population. So in terms of a sales objective to increase overall sales, we want to target places like Tampa or St. Petersburg, and maybe not target a place like Tallahassee that already has high sales per capita, and look more into Tampa or St. Pete, or maybe other cities in other states across the country, and target those to increase overall sales. Overall, from this project, I learned a lot. I like the openness of the project, where you're creating your own data and you're creating your own visualizations. So it leaves you a certain amount of creativity, whereas in previous projects like Tableau 1, it was all scripted and you had to follow exactly, and you would get the same data besides the story part of that, but you'd get the same data as anyone else who was doing the project. So I really like that aspect. I think it helped learn exactly how to use the Tableau software, and also helped with analyzing the data when you could just play with it and try different things in the rows or different things in the columns to get different outcomes on what data you wanted. So overall, I enjoyed the project a lot. Thank you. Thank you for listening. I'm going to go back to drinking my water.